Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Sunday. Well, that's when I'm recording this, at least. But hello, fellas. Good to see you all. Today, I wanted to talk about what is probably one of my favorite subclasses in the game. That being said, it's also one I've never actually played. I feel like nearly every campaign I play in has one of them, but it's never been me. And that is going to be the Oath of Vengeance Paladin. Before I get into that, though, I just want to say thank you guys. Seeing a lot of comments on the past video was really awesome. I read all of them, and I'm really bad at responding, but I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for your words and things like that. It's really awesome. I'm also a little under the weather, so we'll see how today goes, but it should go well. But without any further delay, I suppose let's just hop right into it. Oath of Vengeance. Like I said, this is probably one of my favorite subclasses in terms of the thematics. I think that vengeance is such an awesome motivator for a character. And this really does kind of set you on that path to have all of the tools to chase after that which you seek vengeance against. As with all paladins, it does have its own little oaths and tenets and things. Showing the wicked no mercy, fighting injustice and its causes, and aiding those harmed by injustice. Like I just said, though, I think that Oath of Vengeance is probably one of the most convincing subclasses you can play in terms of giving you motivation to become an adventurer. I think it's super awesome. I think that it can slot into just about any campaign, really. Let's say you're playing, Rise of Tiamat. Maybe your character is from one of the cities that was razed to the ground in order to bring about Tiamat. Maybe a cult leader was the last one. You don't think of something like a Conan the Barbarian, right? Your village being burned down, and the last thing you see is that cult leader or some symbol on a flag or something. And from that moment, you swear this oath to enact vengeance. And I do think that revenge is probably one of my favorite motivators in D&D. I think that kind of looking at that burning core vengeance that sort of erodes everything else, and fighting with that in relation to a party, in relation to the adventure that you're going on, all of those things. I think it's such a cool thematic. I am quite a huge fan of it. It really does help that this is tacked onto what is probably tied for my favorite class. Granted, I have some thoughts on Paladin in 2024, which I'm sure I'll get into eventually. I don't know, maybe that'll be a whole separate video, is talking about Paladin the class rather than just this specific subclass, but I'll try to keep a lot of that sort of on the download this video and focus more on the Oath of Vengeance in 2024. So yeah, let's just get into it. Why not? So at level 3, you get a ton of spells. It's kind of nice now because, well, it actually doesn't really make a difference for your subclass. You were always getting spellcasting before your subclass. But here we have a pretty eclectic amount of spells that are pretty nice. I do quite like the Paladin spell list here because it actually sort of leans towards having you options for you, whether you decide to heavily invest into charisma or you want to heavily invest into strength or dexterity and constitution. Because you can see here at first level you get Bane. Bane, in my opinion, is quite a strong spell. It's a very good spell. The issue is that most of the people with Bane, be it a bard or a cleric, they're going to want to be concentrating on something else. There are a lot of very strong concentration spells for those two classes So it's kind of difficult to really justify having Bane. Whereas on a Paladin, at this level, you're still having only first level spells, and a lot of the concentration spells for Paladin, they're pretty good. You have Bless, you have Divine Favor, which are nice, but I think that Bane, funny enough, is actually probably more helpful for your team than something like Bless. Of course, it depends on situations and things like that, but it can turn a hit into a miss for an enemy. It can cause a creature to fail a saving throw that it would have otherwise succeeded on. And having this on Paladin, I think, is pretty nice. If you're pumping your charisma and you're able to make your saving throw a little higher than what a frontline Paladin would have, Bane is one of those spells that I actually do believe that it's pretty worth concentrating on relatively for a good while. Upcasting it lets you target more enemies, which is kind of nice. I don't think it's like the biggest deal ever, but for those first few levels, when your spell saves are kind of a bit lower, I think Bane is actually a really strong spell. I would say it's an underrated spell. But in addition to that, you also get Hunter's Mark. And Hunter's Mark is the spell that is for your damage paladins. Hunter's Mark, concentration, extra d6 of damage. It's simply extra damage. It costs a bonus action to use, so it will be competing with your Smite. It will be competing with, say, some of the Effect Rider Smites, things like Syrian Smite or Wrathful Smite and things like that. But for raw damage, Hunter's Mark is pretty good. For raw consistent damage, and it actually synergizes pretty well with Vow of Enmity here, which we will get into whenever we get there. At level 5, when you get your second level spells, you get another two options. One that sort of leans more towards that paladin who's pumping charisma with Hold Person. And I think that Hold Person is, by and large, probably one of the strongest single target shutdowns, crowd controls. I think that Paralyze is just such a strong condition, especially with you on a paladin. If you're able to keep it up, you will probably eviscerate whoever is the target of your Hold Person on the next turn. I like it a lot. I think that it's kind of difficult with the higher levels. You're not going to be able to target more than one person until 9th level, but it's useful. I think Hold Person is super useful, especially if you're in a campaign that has a lot of humanoid enemies, ones that, especially important ones that you need to lock down. Hold Person is always, in my opinion, a scary spell to see at the table. As a DM, if I see someone casting it and I fail that save, I know that that enemy is pretty much done for. So having, just another character in the party that is able to pull this out is nice, especially, if you're pumping charisma, if you're having the ability to land this relatively consistently. And then for your martial paladins, you get Misty Step. Misty Step is one of my favorite spells. It's useless is boundless. Usefulness, pardon. Bit of a slip of the tongue there, I'm sorry. Its usefulness is boundless. It can be used to get out of grapples. It can be used to close the distance. It can be used to get away from something. It can be used to out of combat, to traverse terrain. It can be used in so many ways. I think that Misty Step, really is probably one of my favorite spells. I think it's genuinely incredible. It does cost a bonus action, which Paladin is pretty bonus action hungry in 2024. There are lots of things that cost your bonus action. Even if you're playing this martial paladin, you're competing with Hunter's Mark, Smite, Lay on Hands, really a lot of different things that you're going to be fighting for with your bonus action. But I think that in practice, it's never bad to have Misty Step, right? Misty Step is just an incredible spell. At level 9, you get Haste. And if you've ever played a martial and you have ever been hasted, you would know that Haste is an incredible buff. Haste is probably one of the best buffs that you could have on your martial. being able to make, you know, even just that one extra attack, being able to dash or disengage or hide or utilize or anything like that, advantage on dexterity saving throws, which paladins are probably not going to be the best at, gaining extra armor class, which paladins will have really good armor class generally, especially a Vengeance Paladin if you're planning on being within melee. It's really just one of the best buffs, and you can give it to yourself, you can give it to your fighter, and actually this does sort of benefit both versions of the paladin. If you have a fighter and you use this on them, and you're playing maybe more of a charisma spellcastery paladin, you know, with something like oh gosh, what is that? Yeah, there's the fighting style, the Blessed Warrior fighting style. Maybe you're leading more towards that. You're able to keep yourself pretty safe. One thing that is sort of a struggle is that haste, you know, it's a concentration spell. And if it ends, you will be incapacitated until the end of your next turn, which is pretty dire. Paladins, their saving throws are wisdom and charisma. Wisdom and charisma. You can see right up here. So you actually don't have that constitution saving throw proficiency, which is kind of scary. And definitely something to be mindful of. Maybe you want to take resilient constitution, and doing so will probably make your haste pretty good. You do actually get... oh, pardon. I was looking at the wrong place. I thought they got rid of Aura of Protection. You do get Aura of Protection. So if you have, you know, a 16 in Charisma, which you probably will, depending on how you build, you know, you get a +3. So it's not completely... it kind of does play with itself pretty well, I think. You also get protection from energy. I think that this is probably one of the weaker spells on this list. It can be situationally very useful, but I think it definitely has less impact immediately compared to all of the rest of these spells. If you're fighting a dragon, I don't know, I could think of a few things I'd rather concentrate on than simply having resistance to a damage type. I think it's not bad. I mean, taking half damage from something for the duration of the fight it's still pretty strong, but I do think that Paladin has better options to be concentrating on, especially with this sort of a spell list. And some of those we'll actually be seeing right here at level 13, where you get Banishment. Banishment is a pretty awesome spell. It's sort of in the same vein of Hold Person, in that it's a very strong crowd control spell. It is any creature that you would like to target. And you know, if it is one of these creatures that comes from another plane, it's able to just kind of take them out of the fight permanently and take them out of anything that you're doing, really. Banishment's really good, and Banishment, it's a charisma saving throw, so one of the more rare types of saving throws. And if you are pumping your charisma, and if at this level you have 20, you do have quite a high spell DC. So Banishment is something to be scared of. And then at level 13, you also get Dimension Door. I like teleport spells. I think that this is actually a really neat spell. I am a big fan of Dimension Door. You know, in combat, I don't think you'll use it as much in combat, since most of them are smaller scale. You'll mostly be using Misty Step, but there's so many situations where I haven't had Dimension Door prepared. I play a wizard, so in my current campaign. But there's been situations where I haven't had Dimension Door prepared, and I thought to myself, I really wish I had Dimension Door. It is such a solid get out option for you and one other creature. And, you know, it does let you kind of be that Vengeance Paladin, the one who's like, no, you all go. I'll be the last one to see us out. Sorry for the little RP there, but no, it really is, in my opinion, such a cool spell. I'm a big fan of Dimension Door. I think it's a spell that you can never really complain about having. And then finally, at level 17, you get Hold Monster. Hold Person, but Hold Monster. Paralyze is really strong. You'll probably be using this, well, probably more than Banishment, unless you are up against one of those creatures that can be banished and you're able to hold your concentration. And Scrying. Scrying is cool. I think it's very flavorful for the Vengeance Paladin. I think being able to... I think it's actually extremely cool if you're playing, say, something like Curse of Strahd, and, you know, you have extensive knowledge of your target, you know, and they're able to have a lower saving throw against that scry, and, you know, you have maybe Strahd had... Oh, you can't see that. I'm so sorry. Let me move that over. Yeah, maybe you know, you have a possession of Strahd's at one point, and so you're able to scry on him. I do think it's very fitting for the Vengeance Paladin. I think that being able to scry on that which you seek revenge against, and playing out your next move, really, and how to exact your revenges is really cool and really flavorful. So yeah, I think that the Oath of Vengeance spell list is pretty incredible. I think that it definitely helps both aspects of Paladin that you may want to play. I think that it fits the theme pretty well. You know, baiting the weaker targets, applying your Hunter's Mark to whatever stands in your way, and using Misty Step to stay right on its heels as you attempt to deliver your vengeance upon it. Lots of really awesome spells, in my opinion. With that, though, we can go down to Vow of Enmity here. And that is, when you take the attack action, you can expend one use of your Channel Divinity to utter a Vow of Enmity against a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You have advantage on attack rolls against a creature for 1 minute, or until you use this feature again. If the creature drops to 0 hit points before the vow ends, you can transfer the vow to a different creature within 30 feet of yourself. No action required. Yeah, I don't really think that, it needs to be said. This is very strong. This is something that, if you know, on your melee paladins, chances are you will be attacking pretty early. And so you'll be able to get this, very early in a fight and consistently have advantage. It's not concentration. It doesn't take a bonus action or a reaction. It comes with your attack action, which if you're playing a spellcaster paladin might present some issues. But I think that it's awesome. The old paladin in 2014, the Vengeance Paladin, did cost them a bonus action, and most importantly, they couldn't really move it around. Now you can move your Vow of Enmity around pretty freely. Within the same turn, you can Hunter's Mark something, and then you can utter your Vow of Enmity to have that extra damage, to have advantage on all of the attacks against it. And one thing worth noting is that your Channel Divinities, you do get 2 Channel Divinity. Where are you? Sorry, I'm a little topsy-turvy today. You can see you get 2 uses of Channel Divinity, and you get 1 per short rest. So this is something that you can probably have each combat. You can perpetually be giving yourself advantage. You know, if you're not using that Channel Divinity for things like Divine Sense, or later on abjuring your foes. But yeah, permanent advantage is really strong, especially on a paladin, where you're going to be, you know, wanting to hit those crits. I think that it's Vow of Enmity is probably one of the strongest abilities. It's really good, especially with Paladin, because of weapon masteries. I think weapon masteries is something that is kind of glazed over a decent bit in discussions about these sorts of things. But being able to automatically apply your weapon mastery, you know, if you're using something, I shouldn't say automatically, pardon, but having a much easier time applying your weapon mastery. Using something like a longsword and sapping your opponent, giving them disadvantage on their attacks, at that point you are permanently at advantage while making one of the attacks your opponent makes permanently at disadvantage. You can slow the opponent pretty consistently if you're using, say, I believe it's a glaive. I don't use topple a lot, but, you know, if you're using a weapon with topple, knocking them prone and giving other members of your party advantage on them. So I do think that Vow of Enmity in multiple aspects is such a good ability. And the fact that it's able to be used basically without having to use an action, like a bonus action. It's just part of your attack action, which you will naturally be doing as a paladin. I think it's really strong. I think that Vow of Enmity is awesome. It's also pretty flavorful, right? Of vowing against one enemy that you will basically destroy them. A paladin at permanent advantage is very scary. Next is Relentless Avenger. The names of these abilities. I think it speaks to my inner edgelord, but the names of these abilities are just so freaking awesome. Relentless Avenger. Your supernatural focus helps you close off a foe's retreat. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you can reduce the creature's speed to 0 until the end of the current turn. You can then move up to half your speed as part of the same reaction. This movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. Oh wow. It does. I actually have not read Sentinel in 2024 rulebook. But one of the strongest things I think you can do is shutting down the movement of your opponents. If you have a pole arm, enemies will have to make quite a wide berth around you if they are intending to get to your if they're intending to get to your backline, right? If there's an enemy next to you who is, trying to just get away from you, you can stop them. And what's really nice is this is so cool because if you have, let's say you're right here at the opportunity attack and you have a ton of enemies right in front of you, you can maneuver yourself and you can put yourself into a better position. Honestly, this makes me think of the Vengeance Paladin sort of gunning for the back line of the enemy while also stopping enemies able to from doing that to their own backline. I think it's such a, I don't know, dude. I'm very biased. I do apologize because I am very biased. But I think Relentless Avenger is a very cool ability to have. A very good mix of this, still a paladin, still a stalwart defender, who maybe around level 7 is starting to, God forbid, like their party and want to protect them. But also this knight that is so bent on chasing after their foes that they're able to move with this. And this is also something that really, any combat, it can become extremely useful. Granted, chances are that the opponent that might be leaving, maybe they're your Vow of Enmity target, and you'll have advantage on them. I just think that forcing movement to 0 for opponents is incredibly strong. I think it's such a powerful way to shut down an opponent's turn and kind of force them to fight you. Worth noting as well, and I could be wrong about this, let's do a little learning together. Let's go to Weapon Masteries, which there's no link for Weapon Masteries here, I'm sorry. Let's see, let's go to Game Rules, Equipment, I'm so glad you guys couldn't see it because I completely misspelled longsword. Longsword gets sap. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that because it's a different turn, you will be able to use sap on that enemy you are hitting. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think it's incredibly strong. I just think that I'm a big fan of anything that makes opportunity attacks stronger, and especially one as powerful as this. But to move on and not linger on that too much, we have at level 15 Soul of Vengeance. So cool. Immediately after a creature under the effect of your Vow of Enmity hits or misses with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to make a melee attack against that creature if it's within range. I think that Soul of Vengeance is cool. I think it's very cool. And I think that it very much fits the theming of, I am marking this opponent, I will destroy this creature I am fighting, I will exact my vengeance against this creature. That being said, it does sort of combat Relentless Avenger, in that both of them are reaction based. I think that the way I look at it, though, is that this is much more... I think this is one of those things that is fine, because it's based off kind of the vibes of whatever your fight is. If you know for a fact you are committed in one-on-one combat with this creature, and you know that it is completely locked onto you, having Soul of Vengeance every single turn to get an extra attack in is, in my opinion, really strong. That extra attack can't smite, because for some reason they made smite a bonus action. Sorry. I'm not going to go off on that. For some reason they made smite a bonus action. Divine Smite, that is. But I think that Soul of Vengeance is kind of an interesting an interesting option. I think that one thing I sort of brush over a lot in my videos, but is especially more relevant in this video, is that this is more than likely going to be your capstone ability. No written campaign, I think, other than maybe Dungeon of the Mad Mage, goes up to level 20. And so this is kind of what you are looking for. And while it is an extra attack, I think that... I don't know. I just don't know if I super vibe with it. I think that it does combat with Relentless Avenger, and while it is so flavorful of just constantly exchanging blows with this foe, I think that... I don't know. It's hard for me to really find an opinion on this. Because if you are, let's say, I mean, at this level, let's say you have a very... powerful magic weapon, even something like a flame tongue, that is an extra lot of damage you are doing to it. And there is a certain level of metagaming, I think, with DMs where maybe they see that you use your reaction and stuff like that, and then they're gonna rush, and then you're like, dang it, dude, that's... but then there's other times where it's like, you know, maybe I just use this reaction. Maybe I just use it for that extra damage. So I think overall, while it's not necessarily my favorite subclass option, or my favorite subclass feature, I should say, for Oath of Vengeance, I do still think it's very good. I think for it being something you can use every single turn that you are attacked, something that will, it will have advantage with Vow of Enmity, I do think it's pretty strong. I think if it was an opportunity attack, I think that if it was an opportunity attack, then it would be really strong. I think it would be so cool if it counted as an opportunity attack. But lastly, we have Avenging Angel, which is quite possibly one of the coolest names for an ability. As a bonus action, you gain the benefits below for 10 minutes or until you end them. No action required. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of it by expending a level 5 spell slot. You get Flight, a fly speed of 60 feet, and a hover, as well as a frightful aura. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in your aura of protection, the creature, which is 30 feet at this level, yep, it is 30 feet at this level, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, have the frightened condition for 1 minute, or until it takes any damage. Attack rolls against frightened creatures have advantage. This is kind of an interesting little tidbit here. Against the frightened creatures, creatures frightened by your ability. Frighten is a pretty strong condition. Frighten is very good. And I think what makes this, you know, I've talked before about how wisdom saving throws are generally kind of the higher saving throws by enemies, but this is something that you are doing for free at the start of every one of your turns for the next 10 minutes. So eventually they will fail, right? Eventually I do believe your enemies will fail this save, and it is very strong. Because if I'm reading this correctly, there is no restriction. It is not like Frightful Aura, or Frightening Presence, rather, where an enemy who succeeds on it is immune to it. Yeah, they will always be making the save at the beginning of all of their turns if they're within 30 feet of you, which is going to be very easy to do with things like your fly speed of 60 feet, with things like haste, of keeping these enemies near you, things like Relentless Avenger, right? I think that every level 20 Paladin ability is extremely juiced because you get it at level 20. And this one I think is really strong. I think it's a very strong option for crowd control and not only protecting your allies by making it difficult for enemies to... oh my god, I'm so sorry. By making it difficult for enemies to move around since they can't approach you, but also giving them disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks and all of these things. I think Frighten is a very good condition to be inflicting. Yeah, I think that it's hard to really talk about level 20 abilities because effectively in play, you never see them. You very rarely will ever see them, right? So it's difficult, in my opinion, to talk about them. But it's a very good subclass feature, and being able to get it back with a 5th level spell slot. I mean, this is a spell that is... This is an ability that is probably stronger than most 5th level spell slots, right? So this is something that you will be getting pretty consistently. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's awesome. I think it's super cool. I think frightening all your enemies while you rush down your... And, you know, kind of in the vein of the flavor, you know, rushing down your opponent and frightening anything within the Paladin's path. Or, you know, maybe even at this level, you've grown very attached to a party member, and you are using this and basically staving the enemies off from them and keeping them protected as this soul of vengeance. Was that what it was called? Let me pull up. I swear it was... Oh, sorry, Soul of Vengeance is the level 15 ability, I'm sorry. But as this creature of vengeance, right? I think it's awesome. So really, all in all, I think that Vengeance Paladin is... It's very good. It's still very good. I think that back in 2014, Vengeance Paladin was one of the strongest options to have as a paladin, and I do think that that perpetuates into 2024. I think everything that the paladin already has, Vengeance Paladin builds on it extremely well. I think that it doesn't combat too much with things like your bonus action so you can smite outside of Misty Step and Hunter's Mark. Vow of Enmity, of course, is something that you do as you attack, which is so awesome, and it's just such a strong effect. And kind of most importantly for me is that it's so flavorful. I think that Oath of Vengeance Paladin, truthfully, is one of the most flavorful subclasses in the entirety of the game. I think it gives you such an amazing avenue into a campaign, gives you amazing reasoning as to why you are an adventurer, a reason to bond with your party, a reason to push forward and explore the avenues that your DM expresses to you. I think that Oath of Vengeance is truly probably one of the coolest subclasses in the game, and I do think it is very strong. I think that all of its abilities are very useful. Relentless Avenger and Soul of Vengeance, they're going to be used every single turn. One of these will be used every single turn. Vow of Enmity can and probably will be used every combat. Avenging Angel will probably be used every combat. The options are just so strong for Oath of Vengeance. And I mentioned earlier that I feel like nearly every campaign I play has a Vengeance Paladin in it. And never once has that made me upset, because I adore Oath of Vengeance so very much. But yeah, that's probably going to be about all of it from me today. I had a lot of fun. I've kind of got a little carried away with the time. I try to usually make these about 30 minutes, but you know, when you're talking about the things you love, I suppose. Please do feel free to leave a couple comments. I really enjoy reading them, and if more people, like getting it out there, getting these videos out there, they're so fun to make, and I enjoy them so much. But yeah, all of that said, thank you guys. Thank you. Have a great night. Have some amazing adventures, and I will see you again next week.